Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Wednesday, July 17th edition of the MMAOB Daily podcast. I'm your host, as always, Adam Martin. Going to be taking you guys through the latest in the world of mixed martial arts. Follow me on Twitter, guys, at Adam Martin. This podcast is available at MMAOddsbreaker.com and our YouTube channel. Like, share, and subscribe. I appreciate that. Also, check me out at sherdog.com, bjpen.com, MMAnews.com, and MMARings.net. So a pretty quick show today, actually, guys. I'm going to break down what happened in the Contender Series last night, talk about a little bit of news and some fight announcements, and then get out of here. So let's start with the Contender Series. Pretty good card, actually. Four guys got contracts last night. So 4 finishes, 5 pretty good performances by the guys in win, but we'll talk about the one guy that didn't get the contract in a second here. First off, I'll start with the main event, work my way down. Antonio Arroyo picks up a win over Steven Regman here by submission. He gets a contract. Really good performance here by Antonio. He actually ended up closing as an underdog of plus 100. So he was the favorite pretty much the last couple of days, ended up closing as a dog. He has 5 straight wins now heading into the UFC, 2 straight wins on the Contender Series, including last year on the Brazilian version. So good for him, gets the contract. Can't disagree with that one. I think a pretty good sign there by Dana White. Next up, really good performance here by O'Day Osborne. Gets a first-round submission by armbar over Armando Villarreal. Osborne closes a plus 130 underdog. So another underdog that won here. Really good performance by this guy. He's definitely a very well-rounded fighter. Good striking and then a good ground game, getting the submission off his bottom. So you don't see that often, especially in the Contender Series. Guys getting finishes from the bottom, but he did. Gets the armbar, and it was a verbal submission. Villarreal tapped really quick, I think verbally. So really good performance by Osborne. He got a contract as well, and again, well-deserved because this guy's a very good fighter from what I can see. Next up, heavyweight bout, Dontel Mays beats Ricardo Purcell by first-round knockout. Basically finished him at the end of the first round. Huge left hook and then some ground and pound. Great knockout for sure. This guy is a good heavyweight prospect. That's his 3rd time in the Contender Series and 3rd time as a charm. He lost in the first season to Alan Crowder, won last year, and then this year picks up another win, gets the contract. So good performance by Dontel Mays, of course. And anytime you get a knockout, you're probably going to get a contract, especially if you're heavyweight, like Dana White said. So they always need heavyweights. He gets a deal. Next up, this was the controversial one. Kevin Siler beats Lance Lawrence by unanimous decision. Very dominant performance. This guy's really good. I mean, he's got good striking, good ground game. He's a well-rounded fighter. He's very, very good. But the problem was he missed weight. He missed weight by 7 pounds. So you can't sign a guy missing the weight by that much. Dana White says that they're going to figure out what's next for this guy. Clearly, they like him. I mean, he's good, man. He definitely has really good striking technique, like I said, and his ground game. Although he wasn't able to finish a very durable and tough Lance Lawrence, he still dominated this fight from bell to bell. So it was a really good performance by Kevin Siler. But when you miss weight by 7 pounds, you can't justify giving the guy a contract. So I probably would give this guy another fight. If I'm Dana White, give him another fight in the Contender Series later this summer. Hopefully, like his injury heal, because it looked like his eye was kind of messed up from this one. But he probably should get one more fight because he's got a lot of talent. But you can't sign him coming off of a weight miss that egregious. And finally, opening up not the prelims, this is the card in general. There's only 5 fights. Brendan Allen picks up a first-round submission win over Aaron Jeffrey, and a great performance here by Brendan Allen. And for me, he was like obviously the lock of the night. This guy had a good resume coming in, good pedigree, and they signed him. You know, Dana White, at first I thought he was not going to sign him. He's like, oh, this guy's young and needs more experience. But then he's like, well, you know, he's fought guys like Eric Anderson, Anthony Hernandez, so he's got the experience already. And yeah, he's 23, but I'm going to sign him. So he gets a contract too. 4 contracts handed out. They've given a lot of contracts so far on this season, the Contender Series, and I think for the most part they've been justified. You know, and I think they would have given 5 if Siler made weight. They probably would have given him a deal because it was a good performance. So we'll see what happens. I mean, at this point though, it's like, you know, they asked Dana, well, you know, how many contracts can give? I saw him the post-fight press conference. He did a scrum with the guys in Vegas, and he basically said, you know, there's no limit to how many contracts he can give, and that's true, but there is a limit to the roster spots in the UFC because they only have so many cards. So you have to assume that some guys in the roster are going to get released because they can't just keep signing guys. So I would assume that they will cut some people going forward. So people coming off a couple losses are probably going to get released. But and also I should say in that Barstool video where they were showing Dana White in the war room, if you notice closely when they showed the fighters' names on the wall, the fighters with like 1 or 2 fights left in their deal, they had either the record in the UFC beside their names, either in, I think, blue or red. I think blue was a positive, record in the UFC, and red was a negative record. So those guys with red beside their name are in serious trouble probably being released. So they all got to be careful here. But for now, these guys get their deals, and we'll see what happens as far as the actual UFC roster goes. As far as news goes, Joseph Benavidez is back in the news, and it's a good thing for him. Dana White says that he might be next in line for a title shot against Henry Cejudo, because Dana White says, and he told TMZ that a flyweight title fight could actually be next for Henry Cejudo, not a bantamweight title fight. So that I found interesting. Good for Joseph Benavidez. He deserves a title shot, man. And this would kind of, I think, figure out that bantamweight division a little bit more too, because then you could have Sterling fight Faber or Sterling fight Yan, and then kind of see who the real number one contender is. While Benavidez, who clearly is the number one contender flyweight, fights Cejudo next. But right now, Cejudo's injured anyway, so we have to wait and see until he gets back. But I definitely found that interesting. Next up, Michael Page, or fight announcers, I should say. Okay, so Michael Page is back, and he's going to be fighting Richard Kiely at Bellator Dublin. And my first reaction to this was, wow, they're giving him another guy like they used to. They used to do squash matches with Michael Page, and then what happened when he stepped up in competition? Paul Daly gave him a tough fight, and then he got destroyed by Douglas Lima. And this guy, Richard Kiely, I mean, again, no offense to this guy, but he's 3-1 as a pro. He does have 3 wins by stoppage, so that's pretty good. But I mean, look who's fought. He's fought in really low-level guys, and also his amateur career wasn't too good either. So this should be a mismatch. Michael Page coming off that devastating KO loss to Douglas Lima, but I mean, before that, the guy was on a roll, and he looked really good. So I expect Michael Page to win this fight in devastating fashion. This is a setup fight for Michael Page, and if he loses this fight, I mean, he's going to probably have to think about what he wants to do with his career, but he should definitely win this fight. And one more fight announcement here. UFC China gets another fight. Karol Rosa is taking on Lara Procopio, and I think this is, if I'm not mistaken, 2 UFC newcomers. I'm pulling their records out right now. Not 100% familiar with these 2 fighters, to be honest. Rosa, 11-3, 24 years old. She's coming off 2 straight wins, including one in the Future FC card. And again, those guys are getting signed like crazy. So the UFC is watching those cards. She actually does have some decent experience. She's fought Larissa Pacheco, lost by submission to her. Lost to Melissa Gatto, who I believe is on the UFC roster as well. So she has some experience. And then she's taking on Lara Procopio, and she is 6-0, 23 years old. Don't recognize any of the opponents she's fought, but she's been obviously pretty good. She's been fighting in Shudo, Brazil. So we'll see what happens there. I'm kind of surprised that is that right? UFC China? That's so strange. That's a strange place. It is, yeah. 2 Brazilians fighting in China. Very weird. I mean, there's some Brazilian cards coming up, so that's strange. But yeah, we'll see what happens in that fight. Not too familiar with the fighters, but I'll give you my pick at the end of August when that fight happens. So short show today, guys, but definitely want to talk about the Contender Series. I'll be back tomorrow talking about whatever else happens in the world of MMA. I should mention myself and Cole Shelton did a full preview podcast for UFC San Antonio yesterday. I think we'll be doing the podcast on Tuesdays going forward, so definitely check that out on yesterday's podcast. It's on the YouTube channel, of course, and on MMAOddsbreaker.com. So again, guys, check me out. Twitter, MMAdamMartin. That's my Twitter handle. MMAOddsbreaker.com, our YouTube channel. Like, share, and subscribe. BJPen.com, Sherdog.com, MMAnews.com, MMArings.net. Check me out all those places, guys. Have an amazing day. I'll be back tomorrow morning talking about the latest in the world of mixed martial arts. Until then.